Guys, welcome to the Wild Bit Show. I'm Meghna,
And I'm Upamanyu.
and we have got a great show planned for you. We're obviously going to be talking about Jane Goodall, the amazing conservationist and chimpanzee champion who has recently died. And apart from that, we're also going to talk about how France is allowing all livestock farmers to kill wolves. So they had permits earlier, but they don't have them now. We're going to talk about that. What else do we have on the roster, Rups?
There is a private firm called NatureScot, which has raised more than £100 million in private investment for conservation. They're claiming, a report from The Guardian will talk and see how that is. If it's like really true, then it's very, very good. And then we are also going to be talking about dugongs, dugongs and their conservation in India. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. We'll be back after the short intro.
So, Jane Goodall, as all of us know, was this renowned conservationist, and she was well known for her research on chimpanzees. She spent decades in Tanzania researching chimpanzees, and her research broke our knowledge of chimpanzees as we knew it. And she told that how even chimpanzees are into rudimentary tool making, something that was first and only confined to humans, because that was what was believed, that humans evolved because they learned to make and modify tools. And Jane showed how chimpanzees are capable of the same thing, how chimpanzees had a lot of emotions, bonds, and how they communicated. So she broke the barriers of what we understand of animals and how we classify them, which was, I think, just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think those of us who are into conservation and into the wildlife world um, definitely would have heard of Jane Goodall, that's without a doubt. But she's also been like the most famous thing all of us might have heard about her, that she spent a significant amount of her life in the jungles with a group, with like a sort of group of chimpanzees, a particular sort of family of chimpanzees for a long, long time. I think almost like 50 years. Sorry, 15 years, 1 5. Um, and that's what brought out all the different, um, insights into their daily life, into how, yeah, how they behave, how they use tools, etc., etc. So that amount of dedication, I think, is, yeah, only few people can show that amount of dedication towards their towards science, towards their craft, towards whatever they are passionate about doing. Um, and yeah, Jane Goodall was an inspiration due to that and many other things. How she sort of advocated for conservation in general. Um, in the later years following her intensive research on the chimpanzees.
Yeah, and so Jane, actually, her dad bought her a chimpanzee doll when she was 8, and that chimpanzee doll was called Jubilee. And that chimpanzee doll was what actually got her affection and sparked her interest for animals. Her mom and her mom's friends thought that she might actually be scared of the doll because, it's not a traditional teddy bear that children get. But she got
Hmm.
so attached to the chimpanzee, and that was where life took her, towards the chimpanzees and to stay with them. And one of the interesting facts about the entire thing about Jane was when she entered into the field, it was a male dominated field, and there were not many female conservationists who were allowed on the field. So she had to actually take her mother along when she went to Tanzania because for safety reasons. So her mom accompanied her, and back in the 1930s, 1950s, maybe,
Mm,
it wasn't normal for parents to maybe, support their kids into conservation work and actually go with them to the site and make sure that they were fine. So she had a solid support system, which gave her that start. And because of Jane, now in the research work, there's like an equal amount of females and males because she encouraged young women to go into wildlife research and wildlife work. So she's done more than just for the chimpanzees. She's changed a lot of things, a lot of narratives, and she did something that was really brave for her time. So and she also broke this whole barrier of, I think till that time people believed that chimpanzees were strictly vegetarians, but she brought out how chimpanzees would, take a leaf stalk, they would poke it down termite mounds, make sure that the termites were on the twig of that leaf, and then they would eat the termites. And apart from that, they had these colobus monkeys around the place, and they would hunt the colobus monkeys. I think this was something we saw in that documentary as well, oops, right, the 20-year
mm,
documentary. So they would kind of round up or like make sure that this colobus monkey had no exit, and then they would kill that tinier monkey. They would rip it apart and they would eat it. So she broke the barrier of what we thought or what we knew of chimpanzees, but also she broke the barrier of how you can be friendly with a wild animal. So there were a lot of chimpanzees that warmed up to Jane, and they let her into their circle. They would spend time with her, they would talk to her. So this is a reminder of, when you spend time with animals, tame or wild, if you give them enough respect, if you make them seen and heard, they will give you back that same respect. They will let you into their inner circle, and they will make sure that you are seen and respected as well.
mm. No, I completely agree with that. And I think all the points that you said um, made Dr. Jane Goodall the person she was to many people, the inspirations she was to many people. And I've seen people's Instagram stories and posts being flooded with, the appreciation for her work, for her life, celebrating her life, and like she lived a good life, she lived a long life. So we have certainly lost an enigma in that field, but also she she left her mark so deep that you know forthcoming generations will remember her. There's that saying that you you die twice, once when your physical body dies, and then the other time when um, the last time your name is spoken. So I think Jane Jane's name and Jane's memory would be there with us for a long, long time. And like she did so much. Not only like the research, the chimpanzee research was one of the most prominent things that she did, but um, you know, from creating a non-profit organization that sort of um, dealt with all both the scientific and sort of the humanitarian sides of it, because there is obviously a conflict, human animal conflict with chimpanzees as well in some parts of Africa. So it is also, you know you know for any researcher or conservationist who are working with chimpanzees, it's also very important for them that they also look at those conflict areas and also support the humanitarian side of it things as well, because if not, then both the humans and the chimpanzees are in danger. So yeah, she has left an extraordinary legacy. Um, scientist, educator, and whatnot. And yeah, a lot of the generations will remember her contribution towards science conservation and everything else.
And I think it's very important to also understand that when Jane got into chimpanzee research, she did not have formal education. She actually got her
Oh, really?
She got her PhD
Wow.
because the researcher who had taken her onto the field, he was the one who pushed for her PhD, and that's when she got her PhD. But she did not have formal scientific education before that to get into that kind of research. And when her what would you say, her supervisor,
Mm,
Leaky, that was his name, he had actually fought for her. He went and he told how her research was groundbreaking, because back at that time, even though she was battling all the things in the jungle, staying by herself, being with the chimpanzees, there wasn't enough funding. So he had to push for the funding, he had to push for the research, he had to push for her PhD. And that is how she actually ended up. So it is a reminder that you do not have to be in that field. If you have the passion, if you have the passion and you're at the right place at the right time, I think your life can really really change. You just need to really believe in that passion, and you need to really believe that you will be,
mm.
you will get there and do what you have to. And yeah.
No, I think that I would say is not very good advice, but it worked out for her because obviously her, as you said, her research was groundbreaking. Um, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it will work out for everyone else. It's a lot of luck and a lot of being at the right like at the right place at the right time. Um,
While that
yeah,
is true, while that is true,
the
and
hard
not
work hard work sort of will, like, the formal channels exist for that particular reason, that everyone can't be a genius. So even though if you're not, then you know you can go through that process and trust the process, and you'll be somewhere. But definitely for Jane, there comes that sort of enigma every now and again, which sort of shifts our understanding of ourselves. And and I think most of the chimpanzee research is based on the premise that we want to understand ourselves. It's not like, I mean, definitely chimpanzees also, but because they look very similar to us, they sort of behave very similar to us socially and mostly physically as well. Um, yeah, and we have a very close sort of genetic connection with them as well. So yeah, I think the premise of it is primarily where did we come from and how did we get here, but also to understand such a important species, a cornerstone species of an ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think, oops, like, while you're right that not everyone might be that lucky, but I think if you really have passion, it translates into something. So if you really feel strongly for any kind of field or any kind of work, then you should put in everything that you have, and it will take you somewhere. Not everyone might be lucky to be at the right place at the right time. True, but like Jane, she knew she just wanted to be in Africa. She knew she wanted to be studying chimpanzees. And then when she went there, within the first few months, she knew that that was home for her, that was where she was meant to be. And then she just stayed there and just researched relentlessly.
Mm,
And even though, and the I think the toughest part for her must have been that she was a vegetarian, and she went to Tanzania in the forest, and she literally ate like a bird, apparently, like just berries and this whatever little things that she found that she could eat from the forest. But that is what she survived on. and
Mm,
she went on to research for 15 years. And this is in a time where technology did not connect us enough. So anything and everything back then was maybe 100 times tougher for her to get her research papers out, for her to get that research heard, for her to just communicate and let anyone know what she's done, for her to be there, for her to get any kind of resources. So back then it was just it was just very different. And she stuck through all of that just because her love for chimpanzees overpowered every other problem that she could have had there.
mm. No, that's why that's part of the reason why she's considered such a, because no, I don't think even one, like 0.1% of people, like humans, can do that sort of determination and that sort of tenacity. um but yeah, it's very, very inspiring, is what I can say, um
Yeah,
from that perspective.
I'm just gonna share this Nature article that shows her holding Jubilee. So that was her toy that she got when she
Mm,
was little, and she's had that toy till at least what is believed at least till 2000. So that is her posing with that toy. That was her inspiration. So which is also a stark reminder. I think this is something where me and Oops, we both spoken about how as if you shape a child's view when they are young, it would change how they look at life and what they see growing into adulthood. So when they're young, if you tell them that animals are something to be feared of, or animals are not great, or animals are below us, then that is how they will view them. But if you give them an animal stuffed toy, or if you take them out, or if you have a pet dog, or if you show them that animals love you back and they're amazing creatures, then they actually also tend to love animals. And this is what I think for Oops and me, our childhood is what shaped our love for animals, because we were
mm.
pushed, not pushed, but
No,
we were
but
shown.
yes, but also it's important, again, it's oversimplifying a bit, I think, but I think it's also important to say that, you know, to children, that yes, animals are, can be like harmful to you, but you have to know the correct way to interact with a different animal. So I think that's the teaching that parents, I guess, should be imparting. Because animals can be dangerous to you. They can harm you in ways which is very, very difficult to recover from.
While
Um,
while that is true, I think Oops, the
and you can't
major.
reason with them, right? You can't reason with an animal. Um, if they feel like doing something, if you've instigated them enough, like even if you instigate a human enough, you can sort of reason with them. Even after that, there is some room for conversation. But once that arrow leaves the bow, there's no way to stop it. Um,
But Oops, with animals, you have to understand that they do not attack until and unless they're provoked. So
yes, that is what I'm saying.
in
Like,
defense, or if you have caused them some kind of trauma. With humans, you don't
yes,
even need a reason. A lot of times, it's without a reason that some human might attack you, or at least with
there is
like.
some reason there. There is some similar reasons there as well. But
No, I mean, how would you justify all the rapes and molestation and everything? There's literally zero reason. It's just because you exist
I
as a
mean,
woman.
that comes from like some kind of psychological trauma as well, right? That is
No,
proven.
No, no, no. A lot of rapists and sexual abusers have zero trauma, and they still do that. They only because they feel like they can, they do it. So, for a lot of humans,
I
there are
mean,
no
yes,
reasons.
that is true.
But for
That is true.
animals, I mean, animals are really simple in their head.
Yes,
So,
but that is what I'm saying. Like, you can't reason with, like, even, I would say, like, in a percentage of cases, even if you provoke a human, after that, you can reason with that person to a certain degree. There is that room for reasoning. But once you provoke an animal, there's no reasoning after that.
yes, but I mean, the entire thing goes. on to say that why would we provoke an animal? Like, I mean, why do you want to do that?
It
That's
it
the
can be by
that
mistake. It can be by mistake
but the whole point is, oops, that
because you don't know.
most people teach their children um that animals are bad or animals are scary or animals are, something. So people do
Yeah,
not.
I think that is that is what I'm saying. That should be part of the teaching, that animals are scary, but you should interact with them in with respect, you know. That's the teaching I'm saying. Not that, all animals are good.
No, that's not the point. My point was that most humans do not teach their children anything about animals. They keep them
Mm.
away from animals, and these same humans grow up to be scared of anything, like a small harmless dog to a small harmless cat or anything. I mean, they're just scared of every animal out there. And that's not a great way to grow up.
Nah, that's not
Like, I mean,
that's not.
I personally feel that if you've not felt the love of an animal, you're actually losing out on a lot in life. Like, it is a privilege to feel the love of any animal. For you to be important to an animal, it is an absolute privilege, and it's a feeling that humans cannot give you, like absolutely cannot give you. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I think
when
dogs and cats, yeah, dogs and cats, they are the closest we have had. I think Jane Goodall had mentioned it once as well, that her favorite animal is a dog as well. Um, and yeah, that applies to a lot of people. A lot of people's first interaction with animals is in the form of a pet. Um, mostly a dog or a cat. Um, yeah, I think that respect, that you're in their territory, when you're inside a forest, that respect is very important. They are, otherwise the interaction will become dangerous. If you don't have that respect, and don't know the behavior, that interaction will become dangerous. Yeah. I think Jane Goodall, the notes she took, I think remember reading it somewhere, that the first to for her to be accepted in that group, it took a very long time, and there was no way to rush the process. So that's also what is meant by respect. um, you know, you can't sort of go in and say, accept me to your group, or give me, show me everything that you do. You can't do that. um, yeah, you just have that respect and have that patience, I guess.
yeah.
But yeah.
I think, like, the photo on the screen is Jane looking at Flint, and I think his mom Flo. Flo was the matriarch of the group, and
Mm,
Flint was particularly attached to Flo. So when Flo died when she was 8, the mom died. Flint died a month later. Now, it could
mm,
also be because he was extremely attached, but it could also be of different reasons. But this is one of those photos that show how, the chimpanzees were just there around wherever she stayed, and they would come visit her, and they would, how close proximity she stayed with the chimpanzees.
mm,
So this
mm,
is a photo that shows you, it's a beautiful photo, because it shows the entire background. It shows you her accommodation. It shows where the chimpanzees were and how comfortable they were around her.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, once she was accepted into the group, then I think it was, yeah, much more comfortable for both the chimpanzees and Jane, because the chimpanzees didn't have to look over their shoulders all the time with this weird person following them, but also for Jane to get to know them um, a lot better.
and not
So,
and not just the wild chimpanzees. She actually helped rescue chimpanzees from, like, different zoos,
oh,
and
100%, yes.
she made sure that they had a good life after they were released into the wild. There's this one video which is really famous where Jane's released a chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee comes back and hugs her like as a
Mm,
thank you. Now, obviously, and this is also something that Jane brought out. Like she talked about how chimpanzees also hold hands and they hug and they kiss just like us. So this was
mm,
something again we thought primarily was just restricted to humans. That we were someone who gave our emotions or showed our emotions to other humans through this, but then she also showed how chimpanzees do the same. And so that chimpanzee hugging her was like a thank you. And then the chimpanzee went, which was beautiful.
mm, mm. Yeah, I think there is a long, long time that her impact will be felt within, like, the loss will be felt, but also the impact she left on a number of different um, areas of conservation and wildlife management and research and everything in between. Um, yeah, that will be felt for a long, long time. Um, yeah. So through this, I think we wanted to also pay our respects to Jane and her life's work, but also remember her fondly for all that she has contributed um, towards nature conservation, chimpanzee research, and many other things.
Yes. And I think all these pioneering researchers who fought their way out from the 1930s to now, um, or from the 1900s or whenever, we have to respect that. For them, they gave their life up doing this, and it was really tough for them back then. And that showed how, their passion is just unmatchable to whatever we say today. Even if we have like dying passion for animals today, we have a lot of resources and different ways to communicate that. But back then, it had to be just you and the wilderness and nothing else, like no form of communication, no form of anything else. And just just amazing that you just stayed in the forest and just existed with the animals.
Yeah, that is super, super cool. Yeah, certainly a big loss. Um, cool. Speaking of that, um, I think another um, report from the UK is about this private funding round that was recently held um, by an organization called NatureScot. So the report is from the Guardian, and it is titled "NatureScot may raise more than £100 million in private investment for conservation." It goes on to say that NatureScot is pursuing over 100 million in private investment for up to 15 government backed nature restoration projects across Scotland, aiming to fill significant funding gaps beyond public grants. Future Economy Scotland (FES) criticizes this, calling it wasteful and counterproductive because profit-driven investors prioritize financial gain over environmental emergencies. NatureScot acknowledges FES's analysis but maintains private funding is essential as grants alone cannot cover the expensive costs of large-scale restoration. Project details are undisclosed due to ongoing development. This highlights an ongoing debate about the crucial role of private capital in Scotland's vital conservation efforts. I think we spoke about this when we were discussing, when we reported on the dire wolf topic and the de extinction of dire wolf, and then wanting to de extinct the the MOA as well. Privately funded science is I look at it very skeptically, because obviously private investors, their primary motivation is like, by the nature of things, the primary motivation of private investors cannot be selfless, or is not selfless from what we have, the evidence that we have thus far. um they will look out for their, as they should. I'm not criticizing that, but private investors will look out for their own benefits. And if we are a private investor as well, we will say those exact same things. We can't be selfless in that regard when the primary goal of that investment is for our money to be utilized, but also for us to gain back the equity from that, and some generate some sort of profit from that. Um, so I fully understand, and fully, I think I am with Future Economy Scotland FES's analysis of the situation, um, because yeah, private investment is often not goal driven, but it's more um, profit driven in that regard. So
But at the same time, like obviously, mm, you know any private company, unless it is something like a CSR initiative, which is the corporate social responsibility initiative of a company, even those, they might have some kind of they would want to promote their brand in some way. but
mm,
but having said that, if in general government funding, even in India, okay, like wherever I've worked and volunteered, funding is scarce. So you want, like more funding, and that is where you would go with private investment. So what are the solutions that we have if we need more funding for nature, and it's not coming from the government?
yeah, that is a very big dilemma. Um, Privately funded science, and I'm considering this science as well. Conservation is part of our scientific endeavors as well. Privately funded science has, you know, a very big problem at its core, that the profits and the role of the investors, and because it's investors with an S and not investor, that means you have to keep all of the different people pleased, which, and it's the investment is not no strings attached. That's that's the core problem I see with um, privately funded science. And that is why I think I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's a famous astrophysicist and physicist. He one of the most famous of our times, at least. And he said this, that all the leaps that has been made in science has been funded by the state, because the state's goal is very different, which is political clout. The state's goal is diplomatic, and a lot of times, saying in the world stage that we have done this. So that means their goals very well aligns with science's goals. It's not the same, but it very well aligns with it, because you know the political agenda can be fulfilled by science making leaps and bounds. So they have a huge incentive to fund science. The state has a huge incentive to fund science. Yeah. So
I mean, obviously the government has to. I don't know if, even if they have incentive, or they don't, it has to be something that is part of their prospectus.
no, it doesn't
Or
have to. Like, a lot of governments don't fund science.
I mean,
Um,
in smaller ways. I mean, I'm not saying just science in general, but at least the environment or nature or something related to wildlife. All governments have to take out a chunk and keep it. It has to be one of their prospective motives. You can't. No, actually, yeah, you're right. Maybe seeing how the US is going right now, maybe yeah, they have an option not to.
no, no, they always have an option not to. That is the thing. Like, the thing that is keeping all the governments in check is their image or their perception on the world stage. That's the only thing. Like, you have to be able to, and that is what keeps in check most of us, right? Like, we don't want to be left out. We don't want to be seen as this outcast in our communities. The cost of being an outcast is too high in social currency, you know. So yeah, that's the incentive that all these governments have, um, to keep doing what they're doing for science. Again, their motives are completely 360 degrees opposite, but they are still parallel to each other. So one can benefit the other will benefit it from the one. So that's why I think government, the state has been funding science for such a long time, and it will continue to do so. Um, Albeit, you know, less than before, or maybe not as much as can be raised from a private investment. But this 100 million pounds, or whatever the amount ends up being, I think the executors of that project will face so many different problems and so many different hurdles, more than, the government red tape that we keep talking about, just to please these investors. There is a slim chance, I would say, a 0.1% chance, where that doesn't happen, or that happens minimally, and the project still sort of reaches its end and fulfills, majority of its goals. Um, but that chance is very slim. Um, if it happens, it'll definitely be a trendsetter, like a trailblazing event
But
for the world of conservation.
I think there are, obviously it depends on which private company you're talking about, but there are companies out there where the owners or whoever you would meet, they genuinely have the soft corner for science and the
That is
soft
what I'm
corner
saying.
for yeah.
That's the thing. This 100 million can't be raised by one person. It's investors, not investor. So the free Keiko project was funded by a billionaire. He had a soft spot for killer whales in general, and he funded the free Keiko project for a long time. And when he didn't want to fund it anymore, I think there was a divorce, or some sort of, drama in his personal life. He didn't want to fund the project anymore. Then the project completely fell, and they had to scramble for, like, yeah, it was in shambles. And that was partially one of the reason why the free Keiko project didn't go as planned, or didn't, go as. So if it's one investor, it's easy. But when there is like 100 or 1,000 people investing in the same thing, then keeping every one of them pleased is very difficult.
True, but I mean, obviously if the investors are not seeing, like they're not giving their money in terms of return, um
Mhm.
like if they're just
Is
giving their
there an
money
investment
away,
like that?
like donations, a lot of like
This
Warren
is
Buffett
but
and
this is like
other.
investment. It specifically says investment,
Then I do not
private
know.
investment. Donation
uh
is different. Yes, donation is different completely. But I don't think nobody is giving away 100 million pounds for donation.
but I mean, they're saying that the investors, um, obviously they would prioritize financial gain, but what
Mm.
if there are some investors, I don't know, maybe it depends on the investors, and it depends on how many investors we're talking about for the £100 million, and it also depends on what the investors are looking at getting out of this, this investment. So if they're actually not looking at a huge return in terms of of
No, I
financial
think
gain.
we'll be naive to assume anything else than them looking for a profit.
But how would
It'll
they
be very
make
naive to assume that.
how would they make profit out of restoration, nature restoration projects?
That's the exact questions that the investors will ask. Imagine you were an investor. What would you ask?
But that probably the only thing would be to make trails and have tourists go into these. But then that
Probably.
but then that might defeat the purpose of the restoration projects.
That is correct. So that's why I think Future Economy Scotland is like, and their report is there as well, um, available as a PDF, and we'll definitely provide that in the pinned comment, a link to that. But yeah, that's I think the major concern from from that group of people who have analyzed the situation and have said that it's very very problematic. um I think NatureScott, if it and manages to do so, will be asked that question by if each and every one of the investors, that how are you going to you know bring this money back. As is with like any other investment round, when you go for an investment round, you are asked those questions. Um, you know, so yeah, it's yeah, I think the motives, there's a huge conflict of interest, I feel. And
True,
yeah,
but uh again, now this is always, where do you get the money from then? Like, if you want to actually do something good for nature and wildlife, where do you get the money from?
I think the answer is going to be advocacy. Keep on advocating for the government. Like, there's no doubt about the great things that nobody thought were achievable, but we have managed to achieve through advocacy and through talks with the government. Not lobbying. I hate lobbying. um I think it's a great deterrent. Lobbying is a great deterrent to anything good. But yeah, I think advocacy and speaking with the government and making them see your viewpoint, protests if required. Um, yeah, those are the only pathways, I think, and that is the pathway a lot of different groups have been following and are following to um, you know get the government to see and invest fund more. Um, yeah, I think privately funded science like can sort of advance human understanding, but for these kinds of projects where it's the outcome we are looking for ideally, or the best outcome is a selfless outcome, that those kinds of projects is very difficult to be funded privately. um
The
yeah
only time will tell us how NatureScott got that money and what has happened, and if it
yeah
actually led to something
it
good.
hasn't got that money. It says it may raise. So I think they're going for the funding rounds, and they're going um, to investors to have those initial talks. But if NatureScott manages to raise it, and the project more or less finishes with its intended goals, then it will be, as I said, like a trailblazing event, and it will be such a trend-setting event that, more people will follow, if that, in that slim chance that it happens. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very double-edged sword, because the government doesn't have money to fund, and the private investors that do have money to fund may not do it because of whatever their underlying motives are, or they might do it because of whatever they want to get out of it. So
Mm.
yeah, I think with
And
nature.
they might, yeah, I think that's on NatureScot and the other groups that are involved in this to make that decision on whether that outcome that the you know generally the investors are looking for. There might be some individuals that looking for different things, but what are those broad themes that everyone is sort of looking for? There should be and will be some themes there, I believe. And if that those outcomes is worth the or those outcomes are things that we can live with, that's the you know I think that's the decision there, and that's the choice that Nature Scott and other groups will have to make, um, and the government at the end of the day, because the government will approve some of these things. I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a waiting and watching game. We have to see what happens, and maybe sometime at some way, this group of investors might surprise us that even a group can work towards something great, such as just conserving nature. But we have to. There's no other way to know. Um,
Yes, I feel the same way. I feel
yep.
the same way. Very iffy feeling about it, very skeptical on that, but if it happens, then it'll be such a great sort of trend setting event.
Okay. I
So
guess we can move
that's
on to the.
that.
Yes. We can move on to the next topic then from here.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. The next topic obviously is France plans to allow all livestock farmers to kill wolves. France, having successfully lobbied for downgrading wolves from strictly protected to protected at the European level, is now set to implement new national measures. A key change will grant all livestock farmers the right to kill wolves to defend their herds, shifting from a restrictive permit system to a simpler post kill declaration. This aims to accelerate farmers' responses to attacks. The prefecture of Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes is overseeing the clarification of these plans, which will be discussed by the National Wolf Group, though environmental charities have long boycotted it. The proposed changes have drawn criticism from both agricultural organizations who seek more and environmental protection groups who argue France is trampling its international commitments on conservation. Farmers of sheep, goats, cattle, and horses will benefit from this streamlined defense. So, France first actually protected the wolves. Now it is similar to the bear story that we did last time. So
Hmm.
the bears went from 500 to 4,000. So then they were like, okay, now let's issue the permits again for hunting them so we can bring down the population. So it is similar here, that wolves were strictly protected at some time, and they got them down to the protected zone, which means that the wolf population had risen to the level that they didn't have to be strictly protected again. And um, and I mean, earlier they had a post kill declaration, but now earlier they had a permit to allow them to kill, but now they just have to kill a wolf and say that okay, we killed a wolf.
Hmm.
I don't know how the process would work. Like, I mean, if you don't have a permit, you can go around killing as many wolves as you want, and you can just go and say, yeah, I killed a wolf. I don't know how it works, but it kind of makes the entire efforts that would have gone into getting the status of wolves down from strictly protected to protected, it would go for a waste right now. What do you think, Oops?
I think I completely agree with it. I feel like it's a dangerous precedent to set as well. Europe's wolves are any like again to understand this, like we have to also understand like Europe as a continent is severely stunted because of its long history of industrialization and you know growth in very small constricted spaces. It means Europe's forest cover in Europe is few and far between. And what that means is that the biodiversity in Europe is under severe threat and severe sort of threats, and they're severely damaged in almost all places. It's like even if any one of us has traveled Europe, it's very rare to see like a huge patch of woodland or patch of forest. So Europe's wolves are already, I don't know where this is coming from, where they are, they think they are like protected or strictly protected. These, I don't know what these, I sometimes hate these sort of boxes that we tend to put things in. Oh, what is strictly protected? Let's redefine. You know, but I don't think it's at the level. It's at that level of receiving the highest available protection and highest available commitments from the government. Um, and the government can give certain amounts of compensation for to the farmers who have lost livestock or whatever, um, which is the case in our country. Oftentimes, when tigers are eating livestock, and you can apply for a compensation. Um, but this, yeah, I yeah, I somehow feel very angry that this is happening, and
I don't know if changing the narrative would change anything. So, like Oops mentioned, in India specifically, if you've lost any animal to livestock, there is a subsidy system here. I do not know how effective the subsidy system is, but there is a subsidy system. But having said that, like there was an area where in Karnataka where I was researching. It's called Koppal, and there the wolves are actually the god there. So the local deity is the wolf, and what they believe is that the wolf is their, or what they fondly call the wolves, are their Sodra Mama or their mom's brother. So when these wolves attack and they take a sheep or two or a goat or two, the shepherds actually believe that it is good, and their livestock herd, it exponentially grows. So they always feel like when the wolves come and take one or two sheep or goat from their herd, it's actually a blessing in disguise for them, and their herd grows. They don't feel that friendly about leopards though, because leopards, I think, are probably attack more often and take more. But with wolves, they have like a high amount of respect in that area. So I do not know if changing the narrative in some way would help. But when we're protecting a species and you know that the species is already vulnerable, I don't know how how just doing a post kill declaration would be of any help to protecting that species.
yeah. Um, It is very difficult, I'll say that much, because the Western values is very starkly different than our own values, and how the society works as well. So I don't think anybody will believe that wolves are actually, causing their livestock to grow, at least in the Western world. Even if that is, promoted as narrative. It's far too much capitalistic, the Western world, to be able to listen to anything other than money, I believe. Um, Money is the only way to shut them up. Uh, so yeah, but this makes me very angry that France is doing this, and this is basically giving farmers a license to kill, which which as history has shown us won't go down in a well long term. It will certainly cause overkilling, and it will certainly decimate the population again. Um,
Yeah, and I think the ironical thing about this is that even though the government is said to do this, they say, or it says in the article that the agricultural organizations are still not happy because they want more than this. And the environmental protection groups, on the other hand, are arguing that France is not standing up to its international commitments on conservation. So, no one is happy about this move. They're not completely happy. I mean, as a conservationist and as someone pro nature, I see why you would fight against this, but even the farmers are not completely happy. Like, they're not okay
mm,
with just the post kill declaration. They want more than that. I do not even know what more means in this situation, but they definitely want more than that.
mm, which is more concerning, I think. Um, yeah, what more could they want? Maybe they want the license to kill on top of having a license, or getting like a compensation of some kind. Um, I don't know, but yeah, either way, it's very, very concerning. Um, to think about that this is something that they're thinking about even. Um, yeah, and I don't think it's the decision is based on the number of wolves. Even it might have played a role, but it's not. It's very different from what we reported on, or like we brought out the report on Florida's black bears. But that I think is a very conscious decision that okay, they've reached a number and we need to um, not curb their numbers, but we need to we have this interest from people, and we can open up the hunting licenses again. It's more of a, yeah, recreational, which in some terms is even worse. But yeah, it's this just, yeah, makes me so angry that this is happening after all the international commitments and international treaties that have been signed regarding the protections of wildlife under UN and many such other umbrellas. So, um, yeah, France, don't do this. Um, yeah, stop this. This is not good for the wolves or the environment. Like,
That is.
we have spoken multiple times about like the essential role of apex predators. So, yeah.
Mm. So I think, in the article it just says that uh, the France's biggest farmer union, they've basically called for farmers to be equipped with thermal imaging rifle scopes, which the government has refused. So they want the thermal imaging one so that it's easier to kill the wolves at night, because the wolves usually come at night.
Wow. Okay, that's
So
the more they want.
yes, that's the more they want. Um, but
Wow.
that is the more that they're not giving. So so they're not actually licensed wolf hunters. And this is how the permits used to work earlier. That the farmers were not given the licenses to kill, but there were
Mm.
licensed wolf hunters that you could call, that you got a permit from, and they would come and they would kill. So you yourself couldn't actually go and kill a wolf because that was not allowed, but now everyone can kill. So because everyone can kill now they're like, okay, if I can kill, then just give me the best gun that is out there so that I have the best chance of killing a wolf.
Mm. Um, yeah. I feel like there is a lot more different ways, which might not be as which might be a little bit damaging to the wolves as well, but not as severely damaging. There is like more investment into like electric fencing, maybe. I imagine they would already have electric fencing, but maybe more investment into that, better technology. Um, you know, maybe a better maybe developing a better breed of guard dogs. I don't know. Maybe like a mastiff, like a really huge mastiff, that protects the Tibetan herds from snow leopards and wolves um, at places. Um, I think there can be solutions like that. Uh,
Yeah. And at this time, basically, they're saying that if 19% of the wolves are killed every year, it is fine, and that is not a tipping point. So 19% is where they feel that the current population can sustain and grow. But
mm,
if the rate goes above 19%, then the probability of a population decline is significant. Now obviously there must have been some kind of framework where there has been some way that this 19% is reached. But having said that, who is actually going and doing a check that there are only 19% of the verbs being killed?
exactly. If the farmers are having to self-report, then they can say that we have killed less wolves than they have actually killed. Um, and it will be a lot of spending from the government to find out actually whether they're telling the truth. Um,
Yeah.
I think the permit system is still, you know, the compromise we can live with, kind of. But this, how can you go from like a having giving a permit to like just declaring? Yeah, I can't comprehend that. Um,
I
it's
mean, I guess you do that when you have too much pressure from the farmers union, which must have caused this.
That's what I said. Like, I hate lobbying. Lobbying is like one of the biggest evils of our society, and nothing good has ever come out of lobbying. And yeah, I'm in deep hatred of the lobbyists in general. But yeah, the farmers
And
lobby is strong. Every country farmers lobby is so strong.
obviously, I mean, the farmers lobby would be strong because they're the ones who are providing the food for the entire economy to eat. So their lobbying or what they say has a big impact on how things work out. um, but having said that, even though there have to be better solutions like the electric fence, and there have to be better solutions than just left, right, and center shooting. They've also said in the article that like 192 wolves this year they were allowed to kill, but like in the start of the year itself there was a significant high number of shootings. So compared to 2024, there was a 26% of increase of shooting the wolves, and 146 out of 192 have already been killed. So they've told the licensed hunters to slow down because they might reach the cap too early. um
Mm.
so this is something that they can say right now, because they know how many wolves are being killed according to the permits, and because every wolf that's being killed has to be reported. But there is no way of knowing 192 or 200 or 500 wolves have been killed in the next year once you just say, give me a post kill declaration.
That is certainly
Excuse me.
certainly the right way to put it. It's very difficult to manage that, and it's very difficult to come out and say that that's what is happening. So um, yeah, there's basically no track, and like even with the licensed hunters, they are that the government is saying things like you might reach the um, limits too soon. So that means there is like over hunting, or more than the more hunts are being conducted than there should be, you know, every point in year. So they might have, for example, 19% is like 200 wolves a year. So 200 wolves across 12 months, might look like every month there is like two or three wolves, not more than that, killed. So you know, every month, 15, 16 wolves are being killed. That means it's already exceeding that number of, you know, maybe 30 wolves are being killed, 20 wolves are being killed, whatever. So if the farmers are given the license, then I rest assured, like that number is certainly going up. Like maybe the 200 wolves are killed in the first month or something like that
Yeah, there is there
of the
is
year.
no there is no way to know. And like how the like this year itself there has been an increase from the last year. So if you're just taking the permits off, then it's just going to be absolute rampage. I think all the
Yes,
farmers, with all their anger for the wolves and not being able to actually tackle them themselves, now having that what would you
power.
say, power, yeah, or the freedom to do it,
Mm.
they would go relentlessly and attack.
Yeah, like that I can say that like without a shadow of doubt. Like knowing my like even placing myself in their shoes, like knowing how, like if I had all those pressures on my business and my livelihood, and how I would react if not for me being sort of someone who's interested in wildlife, interested in protecting wildlife to large extents. Yeah, I would have done the same thing. Like I would have gone willy-nilly and shot every wolf that I found, because I see it as the enemy. I see it as the enemy. And yeah, I can say that without a shadow of doubt that those 219% of wolves, they will be killed in the first month, if this is done. And I don't know how the government is failing to see this or failing to recognize this. Yeah, the lobby must be so strong. Um, but yeah, our appeal to the French government would be that, you know, this is something that's completely unethical and, you know, very backwards for anyone to do. So have another look at this proposal, and you know, our appeal would be to ban this and keep it at the permit system. I mean, if that's the if this is something that is definitely required, keep it at the permit system, please. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, I mean that is our appeal, but we do not know what will happen, because at the end of the day, it depends on which lobby is stronger. So if there are already talks of it, it is possible that that is what is going to
Yeah,
happen.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, um, that's going to happen either way if the lobby is strong enough.
Yep.
Speaking of that, we have this very another conservation um, sort of success story in a way to say. This is a report from the Hindu, and it's titled "Swim to Safety on the Dugong and conservation. So India's dugongs, um, these are sea cows, very docile, very fascinating creatures, dwindle severely from poaching, bycatch, habitat loss, and pollution. However, recent efforts, especially the 2022 Dugong Conservation Reserve in Park Bay, signal a reversal. Protecting over 12,000 hectares of seagrass, that's the stuff the dugongs munch on, eat. It's a model for integrated marine conservation. Tamil Nadu's stewardship with Wildlife Institute of India and community involvement reduced poaching and encouraged bycatch release. The IUCN lauded its ecological significance. WII surveys indicate over 200 dugongs, a fragile but encouraging recovery. Advanced mapping technologies are also used. But at the same time, challenges persist. Mechanized fishing, again, we have talked about this n number of times, how bad trawling and, you know, all the different other ways of automated fishing are. Port construction, again, Partha, when he was here, he talked about this as well. The port construction, dredging and pollution threatened seagrass and dugongs. Climate change poses risks. And populations are the Gujarat and Andaman populations of dugongs are less protected. Cross-border collaboration with Sri Lanka and consistent funding are vital for wider sustainable recovery. Um, yeah, this is again encouraging, but in the world of conservation, I think it's a never-ending battle with government, with the locals, with funding, and everything else that you have to sort of constantly juggle in order to, make sure the success is not short-lived, or the success is not something that's reversed back immediately um, after that success is achieved. So yeah, um, and these creatures, these animals, I can share like a photo on the screen. They are very docile creatures, but also very, very fragile in how they the in their relationship with the environment. So that means
Yeah, and
protecting them
they're
is
very
very,
close.
very important.
They're very close to their cousins, like the manatees that you would see in the US, the manatees that
Mm,
are very popular. So dugongs have a different kind of tail, and they're slightly different even in the way they're shaped. But
mm,
the dugongs are the sea cows on this side of the world, and even in Egypt and different places. And on the other side of the world, it's the manatees, where in Florida, you see those big potatoes that they would call them.
mm,
And dugongs are vegetarian. So, like underwater, there are very, very, very few animals or creatures that would be vegetarian. Most animals eat other fish or krill or other kind of things, but I mean, it's not common to be a vegetarian when you're an underwater animal, but dugongs do that. So if the seagrass that they depend on, if that disappears, they don't have anything to feed on, and they would eventually perish. So which is why they're called sea cows, because you know how cows on land are always munching on grass. The dugongs underwater are always munching on seagrass.
and I think they're also this critical indicator um, of the health of that marine ecosystem, just because they are consuming all that grass, and then also that means um, that grass is not overgrown. And I don't know what the natural hunters or natural predators for dugongs are, but as Meghna was saying, like they're herbivores, completely herbivores, and um, yeah, it'll be a shame to lose this species to trivial things like for us not being able to solve the problem of um, sort of trolling, dredging, and all the different other bycatch related things that this report mentions. Um, I think the Wildlife Protection Act of creating the Dugong Reserve in Park Bay was a big change. I think that was a very commended effort within the conservation were like conservation circles in India as well. But you know, as I said, like it's a constant effort of um, sort of negotiating all the different pros and cons in order to reach the intended goal. I feel like always in conservation, all the stories are like that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think the thing is, at least this one, it shows that there has been an effort already, and there is ongoing effort. So protecting over 12,000 hectares of seagrass is in itself an achievement that can be applauded, because that's a huge area, and it is a
Mm,
model for like integrated marine conservation. So it is a model that can be replicated in other areas where there's fragile population that needs to recover. But as opposed to like how manatees, they are in shallow waters and they are in areas that can actually be cordoned off and they can be protected. It's not the same for dugongs, because dugongs can be anywhere in the open ocean, and that's why you need to protect like bigger areas.
mm,
Obviously with the manatees as well, they come into the warmer waters and then they go back into the deep seas. But with the dugongs, that hasn't been noticed or that hasn't been documented as yet. So there isn't like a proper area that you can just mark for the dugongs. It is a big area. But it's hopeful, and it's nice to hear that there are talks of cross-border collaboration with Sri Lanka. So if our neighboring country is also with us in protecting, it would be a huge area of protection for the dugongs, and the dugongs can actually their numbers can significantly rise once they are once they have more protection.
mm. Dugongs are mammals, right? They have
Yes.
to come up to breathe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think obviously they're not like I don't think they primarily have their primary habitat will be the open ocean, because obviously they'll have to feed, and the seagrass will be mostly on the shores and things like that. But definitely, like if we have done the Park Bay Reserve in Andamans, and I think the the dugong population in Gujarat probably needs a similar kind of protection as well. The Park Strait is the strait of water between that is separating us and Sri Lanka. So that means the cross border collaboration will be um, very effective in achieving this goal. And yeah, so I'll just quickly share a rough map of that location. So yeah, this is the Park Strait. This is the Park Bay, and here is where I think the dugongs live. You know, this I think this Park Strait and this patch of ocean is especially significant for India for some great mythological reasons as well. This is apparently the place where Ram had crossed over to Sri Lanka to, um, you know, kill Ravan, and that is deeply rooted in our sort of cultural beliefs as well. They had constructed a bridge over Park Strait to reach Sri Lanka, um, as the story goes. But yeah, I think all of those things just lead to this particular patch of ocean and its very importance for dugong conservation.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for us to understand that dugongs basically, when they feed on the seagrass, they promote the regrowth of seagrass, and just like any other plants underwater, they are seagrass is also a carbon sink. So if you don't have the dugongs and they're not promoting the seagrass regrowth, then we're also losing out on a big carbon sink that we have underwater, which is why the dugongs are also famously called farmers of the sea. Because they're helping the seagrass regrowth.
Yes, and I think um, the underwater plants are often discounted for, or often not, because obviously they're not front of mind for a lot of people. The underwater plants are not seen as the huge carbon sinks as mentioned by Meghna. They are um, kelp, seagrass, phytoplankton, all of these different things, algal mats that floats around the ocean. They're very, very huge carbon sinks. In some cases, even more than the Amazon, or larger patches of forests like that. Um, yeah, it's very important. And again, shepherds of the like farmers of the ocean. That means they are such a crucial part of that particular ecosystem, that particular marine ecosystem. It's it's a no-brainer
And
to
like,
us.
there are
Yeah.
areas around the world, like I think Australia is home to around 10,000 dugongs. So there are dugongs across the coast of Australia.
Yes.
So there are areas where you can see like healthy population of dugongs, and the fact that there can be more dugongs existing with everything else. And Australia is also famous for every other ocean wildlife creature that is there. There are whale sharks there, and whales that migrate through the waters. Um, and everything else. So like Australia has a good mix of these marine mammals and marine animals across its coasts. So it's possible for the dugongs and everything else to survive. So if we have stricter norms and more collaborative projects, I think we can get the dugong numbers up to a better number than what we have right now. Just like how Australia has around 10,000 dugongs, I think we should be able to. We might not be able to get to that number, but even going up from 200 to 500 in itself would be a huge achievement.
Yeah, and like it's one step at a time, right? It's one step at a time. You're taking, like, as long as you're taking the right steps in the right directions, and you're not sort of backtracking on the steps that you're taking. You're not backtracking on sort of the progress that you've made, like we discussed in the last story, like the backtracking of progress that France is trying to do. As long as you're not doing that, it's yeah, it's I think it's the steps in the right direction, and um the effort that will count. Sometimes you have to take like drastic measures, and I think declaring that Park Bay Dugong Conservation Reserve was one of those drastic steps that had to be taken at that time. But from there, it's always one step at a time, taking steps in the right direction and making sure that in no way we are trying to go back to where we came from. Rather, we are always taking that step forward. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And talking about taking a step forward, I think oops, it would be a good time to talk about the new species that have been discovered recently.
Yes, that is something we should do now.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the
Um,
first one?
sure. So, a pink bumpy snailfish was just discovered miles beneath the ocean. Mbari collaborators have described three new deep sea snailfish species, including the bumpy snailfish. This is the Monterey Bay Aquarium that does the deep research. Their advanced underwater technology greatly aided the discovery, firstly encountered in first encountered in 2019. Researchers from Montana and Hawaii have jointly published findings detailing these new species from California's abyssal seafloor. Embari's Stephen Haddock emphasized collaboration and data sharing's importance for expanding deep ocean understanding and tracking biodiversity changes. Snailfishes typically possess a large head, jelly like body, narrow tail, and often an adhesive disc to grip surfaces. Over 400 snailfish species are known globally, thriving in diverse marine environments from shallow tide pools to deep sea trenches. So, this is quite amazing to know that there are three other snailfish species that have been found. And yeah, Oops has shared the photo of this bumpy snailfish. So this is one of the snailfish that has been discovered. I think we spoke about other snailfish. I think some other snailfish, right? A parrot snailfish or something else that we spoke about a few weeks earlier.
Mm, it's very interesting. Always very interesting to see the latest in the discovering spree. There's another one that we have where um, a global project has unearthed some new species of wildflowers. So, a landmark 5 decade global study led by Professor Stephen Hopper of the University of Western Australia has unearthed numerous new wildflower species across 4 continents. That's very huge. Published in Nutsia, the research examined kangaroo paws, um, Hemodorum, and Conostylus collected since 1973 from Australia, Papua New Guinea, the Americas, and South Africa. Using fieldwork, morphology, and genetic data, the study mapped evolutionary relationships defining two subfamilies, Hemodoroid, uh, Hemodroideae, 10 global genera and 51 species, and Conostylodoideae, 6 Australian genera and 81 species. So it's, wow, a lot of different species of wildflowers has been discovered. Discoveries include a new South African genus, Paradilatris, and new types within existing genera. 7 kangaroo paws, 8 Hemododorum, and 6 Conostylus. 4 new red and green kangaroo paw species were notably found on Australia's south coast. Hemodorum also holds cultural significance for Aboriginal people, used for both food and dyes. Again, to for newer viewers, this is a segment that we do where we try and highlight sort of new discoveries in the world of biodiversity and sort of flora and fauna, just because scientific inquiry like this is so important, and it also means we have a better understanding of the natural world and what are the important bits to be protected, because as we stand right now, it's very give and take how we look at the natural world and its protection. So the more we know, the more effectively we're able to do those investments and protect the natural world. All right. What's the next thing you want to talk about, Meghna?
The next thing, so we could talk about either Spiti or the
Hmm.
sharks. Which one do you want to talk about?
We can start with the Spiti Valley story.
Okay. So, this is another article or another news that has come from India. So, Spiti Valley is India's first cold desert biosphere reserve under UNESCO. It has been declared as India's first cold desert biosphere reserve under UNESCO's Man and the Biosphere program. Announced at a meeting in China, India now has 13 MAB reserves, globally recognizing Himachal Pradesh's cold deserts. This will enhance international research, promote responsible ecotourism, and strengthen climate resilience in fragile Himalayan ecosystems. Spanning 7,770 square kilometers across Spiti and Lahore, at 3,300 to 6,600 meters altitude. The reserve is structured into core, buffer, and transition zones. It integrates Pin Valley National Park, Kibber Wildlife Sanctuary, Chandratal Wetland, and Sarchu Plains. The unique ecosystem boasts of rich biodiversity with 655 herbs, 47 medicinal plants, and diverse wildlife including the snow leopard, Tibetan wolf, ibex, and various bird species. So this is quite amazing because I mean, if you've been to Spiti or Ladakh, you know that they are just different, like in terms of how they look and how they feel. Like like you would, there are no trees. Uh, there's just very little vegetation. There's very little that can grow there because of the kind of soil that is there. But you get to see these different shades of colors in the in the cold barren mountains, and it's just a different uh, what would you say, environment. So it's quite amazing to know that UNESCO has seen and recognized, and it's declared that as a biosphere reserve. So from the Park Bay Strait area, where we've talked about protection area, then this is another protection area that has come up. And a lot of people go in the winters, specifically to for these snow leopard tours, and they walk a lot of distances, and they look across these mountains. And in the winters, because it's snowing everywhere, the snow leopards descend down, so you have a better chance of seeing them. So this entire area is really unique. The way they look and the way they feel, it's just extremely different. And Spiti is also blessed with like the river flowing through the valley, so that way uh, it's amazing. But it's also sparsely populated. The tourism has grown leaps and bounds in the last few years, but hopefully it doesn't spread across to this biosphere reserve area, and this area stays protected and it's monitored that way.
Yeah, I think again, India is like it sometimes boggles my mind, but India is a country of very wide diversity across its um you know across the from north to south, and v- different ecosystems, very varied and very different ecosystems that exist from you know in different parts of India. And yeah, this cold desert and like why I'm saying this is this this cold desert ecosystem will have a very different need to, for example, an evergreen forest or a desert, like a warm desert, or a mangrove forest. So having all of these different varied ecosystems means that we have to tailor make all the solutions. We can't reuse solutions that has worked in some places for this particular place as well. We can follow the model, but we have to make sure that we have that research and we have that we understand the uniqueness of that particular those that particular ecosystem in order to protect it fully. And I think being recognized as a cold desert biosphere reserve just means that it makes it official. It makes it official to the scientists as well that this is the approach, this is the environment, and we should approach that in a way which is suitable for that kind of ecosystem, and not just follow whatever has worked for example, a warm desert or you know yeah.
Yeah, I've shared some photos of Spiti
Beautiful.
Valley. Obviously, you would see this one monastery that has been highlighted in a lot of photos. That is because that is the key monastery.
Mm,
Spiti and Ladakh, both these areas are Buddhist areas, so you would find a lot of monasteries, and this monastery is called Key Monastery, like Ki,
mm,
or sometimes Key, but that that features prominently in a lot of pictures. But you can see how in the winters it's completely snowed in, and in the summers there's some kind of barrenness, some kind of greenery around the area, but it's
mm,
mostly just a barren desert. And if you see the eighth picture, that's the Chandratal Lake, so it's like a reflective lake, and you can see the mountains being reflected. So it is a beautiful valley, and even though it's barren, there are like these colors in the mountains that you would not be able to see anywhere else, because it's just a different kind of um ecosystem. And like how Oop said, I think we do not talk about this often, or we do not think about this often, but even though India is not one of the biggest countries out there, it has 11 out of 13, I think, ecosystems, or the what would you say, like the grasslands, temperate, all of those. We have
mm.
11 out of 13, which is a huge deal. From going from the north to the south, you have these many different ecosystems. Um, and we need to protect, and we need to recognize that each of those ecosystems are equally important. So the grasslands are equally important to the forests, are equally important to the underwater marine life, is equally important to the cold desert biosphere, which I'm really happy to see that there is a lot of conservation um, areas and conservation news being at least pushed in India. So it's nice to know that there's more and more protected areas.
Yes, I think that's like that's the reason why um getting these accolades, or maybe getting the different you know different categorizations of things is so important. It's it just makes it just means that it will have that protection and that specific kind of research and execution as the needs of that specific ecosystem is. It won't be a blanket thing that would be applied to um, to them. Obviously, as I said, like the models will be followed. There's some conservation models that has worked in the past with regards to like maybe conflict resolution or wildlife management or biosphere management and things like that. But specific research and specific plans need to go into suit this specific kind of ecosystem.
Yeah, and the fact that at least like UNESCO has is recognizing these fragile ecosystems, and it's actually like you know because it's giving this recognition, it also kind of helps the locals be more motivated to save and protect these kind of places, because these are the kind of places that have been raw and untouched for a long time. And that is where the wildlife, and the very fragile wildlife that you don't find anywhere else, that thrives here. So, snow leopards are also found in only a few places across the world, and it's great that we actually have them in Spiti and Ladakh. So you wouldn't want to lose out on them or the Tibetan wolves or the ibex or any of the other different species and flowers and different kind of grass that you see growing in these areas.
Yeah. Um, yes, I feel like it's very like the UNESCO conservation also, like UNESCO recognition also means there'll be like more funding available for that area as well, since it's a UNESCO recognized um biosphere reserve. But yeah, as you said, like this just highlights such a diverse need for diverse approaches to each and every ecosystem that exists here. Um, Speaking of that, there's another ecosystem or a specific member of an ecosystem that's currently in threat from some developmental measures that um, Australia is trying to do. So this is a report from The Guardian, which says, so tiny and so vulnerable. What chances will one of Australia's smallest birds have against a rocket launchpad? So, the critically endangered southern emu wren, designated Australian Bird of the Year. Actually, this is a very cool thing that happens in both Australia and New Zealand, where one bird is designated the bird of the year every year, and there's a public voting round and whatnot. It's quite fun, and then that means that particular bird receives most of the funding in that calendar year. So it has been the Australian Bird of the Year 2025. It faces an existential threat following the federal government's approval of a rocket launch facility in its crucial South Australian habitat. Conservationists voiced profound astonishment at this decision, fearing for the future of this so tiny and so vulnerable, in quotes, species. The bird's is remarkably small, described as roughly the size of a matchbox, with a tail comparable to a pencil. Therese Pedler, chairperson of the Eyre Peninsula Environmental Protection Alliance, emphasizes the immense challenge this delicate creature will face against such industrial development. The approval highlights a significant conflict between economic development aspirations and the urgent need to protect Australia's unique, at risk wildlife. The environmental advocates are campaigning vehemently to reconsider the plan, underscoring the severe implications for a species already teetering on the brink of extinction. What a beautiful bird! What a beautiful bird. But obviously, being such a small bird, I mean, I am in love. Like, wrens are very, like a family of birds that I love. Very small, but very um, sort of fluttering around the undergrowth, very hard to photograph, very challenging to photograph, but obviously very rewarding when you manage to get a good, sharp photo of the wren. And this photo is one of those. Um, Again, imagine this. You might not be able to, but this is this yay big, like a matchbox, and the tail is very pointy, so about the size um, of pencil. So yay big tail. So a long tail, but a very small bird. One of Australia's smallest birds. Um, Again, I am all for science in whatever shape or form, and space research is definitely one of those kinds of things that has progressed us, like humans as a species, leaps and bounds. But I am like astonished at the government's capability to ignore all the different risks, especially the environmental risks, before approving any kind of plan. I think that is one of the first things the government should look at. Like, what are the environmental risks of approving this plan? Because, like, I can say without a shadow of doubt, every plan will have some environmental risks. There's no plan that can exist without harming the environment in some way. And it's up to the government to make sure that harm is as minimal as possible. Certainly not risking the wipeout of an entire species.
And I think it's ironical that they would vote it as the Australian Bird of the Year, and then actually also pass a project that would decimate their population further, because if they're already teetering on the brink of extinction, that means that they're already struggling to survive. And with that, if this rocket launch pad, wherever it has been approved, if that goes through, then what is the use of having these Bird of the Year nominations if you're not going to work hard enough to protect them?
So true, so rightly said. I mean, yes, that I completely missed that. But yeah, I mean, if it's the bird of the year, then yeah, why even have those things? This is the proposed location for the rocket launch pad. Such a beautiful location, such typical Australian flora and Australian sort of ecosystem visible here. And um, yeah, I mean, we're talking about the birds, which also means like we are planning to decimate all its habitat, which is the reason the bird will be gone, because of habitat loss and things like that. Um, and yeah, like to do that to the bird of the year, it seems, as Meghna said, like especially ironic and overly cruel, uh, in our opinion.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think I think like how Oops said, that every project would come at some cost to the environment, but there have to be better places, right? Like Australia is also a huge country with a lot of areas that have no population or sparsely populated, but they should have access, or they should have more plan B's or plan C's of areas that do
mm,
not affect
mm,
or directly impact very fragile wildlife. Having said that,
mm,
it's really hard. Like, I mean, something like a rocket launch pad would take a huge area. So they need to also see which area they can use to make such a thing. Um, and I mean, it would always come at its own cost. So at this point of time, I think Australia needs to see if they really want to give up on this bird, the bird of the year, or do they really just want to launch rockets and go into space research effectively while losing out on these exceptional, unique wildlife that they have only in their
yeah.
country.
I completely agree with that notion. Like, um, this is a beautiful, beautiful bird, and losing it out where we could have prevented it. And I feel like science has reached that stage where, you know, we certainly have options. Like, we have so many options in so many ways, that it's almost unlikely that we won't have an option. It's very unlikely that we won't have an option, um, or won't have a different plan to consider in these cases. So yes, please. Again, it's an appeal to the Australian government as well from us is that, like, consider this bird, which has been voted the bird of the year, and the government has, I'm sure, would have passed a lot of funding for this, or as is with any bird of the year um, bird. Um, so yeah, please consider this. And I feel like we have had to appeal to a lot of governments today, but yeah, there I'm 100% sure there is a better way, and there's a better location where the cost to the environment is lesser lesser. um yeah, it's it's a little bit depressing, but I'm sure the tireless work of the people who are actually working on the field and the environmental groups that are advocating against this, I wish them all the luck, and I'm sure that they will get the government to reconsider and move in a more environmentally friendly direction.
Yeah, that is true. So, now it's a wait and watch game to see if the government actually changes its location or if it stays
Mm,
same, and what it means for the future of these
mm,
emu wrens.
mm,
What would happen of them, and where would they go? And the thing with anything that is human is that whatever project we come up with, it always has an environmental cost. So we need to
mm.
see where this takes us. Um, but yeah, if there is any update, we will keep you updated on it.
Yeah, well, one of those stories that will, all of these, like the wolf story as well, we always keep following those stories, and if something comes up, um, a new development, um, we will be certain to report those back to you guys.
Yeah. So
Oh,
are we coming to a close, or are we do we have time for one more topic?
yeah, we can talk about another topic if there's something interesting you want to talk about.
I think there's this article about three sharks mating, which is
Ooh, yeah.
yeah. So there's a first of its kind footage that has revealed three endangered sharks mating all at the same time.
Wow.
Marine biologist Hugo Lassos captured groundbreaking video of Indo-Pacific leopard sharks or zebra sharks mating off New Caledonia, a first
It might
for
be
the,
Hugo Lasson,
or
since it's New
maybe
Caledonia and it's like a French
French,
territory. Yeah.
maybe, but I think he's from Australia, so I don't know.
Yeah.
First, for this endangered species, this extraordinary footage documents a comparatively calm and gentle interaction, contrasting sharply with previously violent shark mating encounters. Hugo observed one female being mated by two males consecutively for 110 seconds until exhaustion, capturing crucial biological details. Somewhat little ironical that 110 seconds is until exhaustion, but okay. Um, Published in the Journal of Ethology, this unique marine menage a trois provides unprecedented insights into the reproductive behavior of these sharks, long considered a mystery. Scientists anticipate the discovery will significantly aid conservation efforts, especially for breeding these endangered animals in captivity. Um,
Mm.
Hugo's GoPro battery famously died moments after the tryst concluded, emphasizing the rarity of the observation. This is a Nat Geo article, so I'm just sharing the
I've
images.
I've shared it. I've shared it, Megna. You can
Oh,
sort of
you've
keep
shared it?
talking.
Okay, so
And there's
there's
a
a
video as well,
there's a
which
whole
which is
video.
playing right now.
And the thing is that with sharks and their mating behavior, there's very little recorded evidence, even of different
Mm.
sharks. There's another photo under as well under with this. If
Mm.
the entire video, see this photo
Yeah.
of
Beautiful,
both the
beautiful
males.
photograph as well.
Yeah, and why this is even rarer is there are some sharks documented, and when they say violent shark aggressive, mating, is because some male sharks actually grab the female with their teeth, during the course of
I think it's very common behavior in like large predators, like tigers and lions also do that, where the males will grab the neck of the females, and it's a
yeah.
very violent mating. Big cats as well.
With big cats, I think with big cats it's a little different because underwater you're floating, so you really need to grip on because you can be floating somewhere. So when they grip on with that much intensity that you can actually see shark bite marks on the sharks, like
Hmm.
so, and you know that they're shark bite marks and not something else.
Hmm.
But having seen the shark bite marks, there's very little evidence of actually seeing the sharks mating in person. Like it almost seems like the
Yeah.
sharks mate somewhere, like in the darkness or in the night or away from
Yeah, because
humans.
we don't even know like where most sharks mate. Especially the bigger ones is very surprising to me because they are like so big, the great whites and things like that. But we don't know where they mate. We don't know where they give birth. We don't know how they nurse, and all those different things. Yeah, it's a big missing link for us, which is very surprising and very intriguing for me as well.
I do not think the nurse though, because most sharks are,
Like
they,
fish, yeah,
yeah,
they're.
they have their eggs, but some of them can have the the eggs inside their womb and they might give up, but they're
Mm,
not really a nursing species where the
mm,
babies stay
mm,
with the mothers. But
mm,
having said that, even the mating process, there are some areas that that the sharks come together to congregate at that area because it's mating season. Like in South Africa, there's a place called Aliwal Shoal, which is a
mm,
marine reserve because the sand tiger sharks come there to mate for two
mm,
months in a year. But
mm.
even despite them being there, when you go diving, you would see the sharks all around, but you do not see them mating. So it says in this
Right.
article as well that, like sharks are seen every day on dives, and there are hundreds of dives happening every day across the earth, but there is very little documented evidence. So this is a huge breakthrough for them to see like three sharks mating. I mean, even two sharks
Mm.
mating is rare. So this is a even more amazing, revelation.
Yeah. And I'm sure like the scientists who are working on these particular shark species, because what species of sharks they are? Leopard
Leopard
sharks.
sharks, leopard also
Yeah.
sometimes called zebra sharks.
Yes. Yeah, the video shows it very clearly as well, and it's as yeah, like, very unique opportunity for the diver as well, who was able to capture this behavior, and I'm sure like the scientists will be um, on top of this in no time and sort of trying to document more such behavior, trying to sort of figure out what's going on there as well.
and
But
the
yeah,
fact that this
very cool.
also shows that how even a small action camera can have a big impact on
Mm,
recording. So even though his battery died just seconds after this, he was able to capture this rare observation. And if he had not been able to capture it, it would have been one of those things where he would try to go and tell people that this is what he saw, but nobody would believe him. So if it happened even 2 minutes before, because it was
mm,
110 seconds of exhaustion,
yeah.
it would have been something that today it would have not made it to National Geographic. It would have been him still
Mm.
trying to tell at his department that, guys, you have to believe me, this happened. So now everything comes down to the evidence. And yeah, it's amazing that there are these new discoveries, and it's amazing that Hugo was at the right time, at the right spot, and was able to capture this shark mating, because shark mating is such a mystery to most scientists even today.
Mm. Yeah, that that is true. And I think like understanding it is like why it being a mystery is a not a problem but is a gap in our knowledge is because they are the apex predators of the ocean and many ecosystems, so understanding their ecology and their life sort of cycle is a very important piece of the puzzle in trying to conserve them.
True,
Um,
true.
yeah,
And I think that that is a great place to like draw a
right.
close to our show.
That's yeah, I agree with that. Um,
So before we close the show, before Oops, does his closing of the show bit, um, which topic did you guys find really interesting? And what do you think that governments should do? What are the solutions, from France's works to Scotland's private investment to Australia's rocket launch pad? Like, what other solutions can you think of that the government can do for funding and conservation?
yeah, do let us know in the comments. We always appreciate your comments so much. But other than that, I think we have approached the end of today's show. Obviously, goes without saying, do subscribe, do share this show with your friends and family as much as you can. Leave a comment on whatever comes to mind after watching the show. If it was good or if it was terrible, like let us know. We can always learn and improve from that. If you're listening to the recorded version of this show on your favorite podcasting app, consider leaving us a rating. That really helps us a lot with the algorithm and getting us in front of more listeners. But other than that, that's it for today. We'll see you next Sunday, same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.